Well, I actually have pockets and a place to clip the mic, so that's good. Now I can actually move around a little bit more. Good morning, all of you watching. I'm Kyla Jackson, if you don't know who I am already. Today we are going to be starting on our Philippians series. Yes, yes. Yes, but if I can have a lady just be on guard for anybody who is coming in later. Thank you, Dee. So thank you so much for coming. There is a clipboard going around if you have not gotten it yet for our ladies' Bible study, June 13th at 11:30 at Denny's. Whew, that's a lot to say. So I hope you can make it out for that. I'm looking forward to it. And yes, I hope everybody could come out and make it. I have already been told that one person can't make it, but I think we can be okay with that, I think. But so today we're going to be talking about Philippians, one of my favorite books of the Bible. We have two ladies coming in right now. So, yep. So Philippians, this was my mother-in-law's, one of my mother-in-law's favorite books of the Bible. If anybody knew Wendy, she was always joyful. So I think I made a mistake on that, Dee. I think they went back to Pastor. But Wendy loves Philippians. And even before I met Wendy, I loved the book. But I love the book even more now because Wendy just was that. She was always joyful. She was always happy. And she always had a smile on her face. No matter what the circumstances were, she always had a smile on her face. And that was a real blessing and a real treasure to be able to see that when we're going through a difficult time or we're sad about something. You could always look at her and just be like, okay. Because some of us, all of us who knew her, knew that she had health problems. Excuse me. And so we all knew that she was going through stuff. And a lot of the time she wouldn't even let you know. But she always had a smile on her face. So I hope that could be said the same for you. And one of the reasons why I like Philippians is because one of the verses in here is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. And that, ladies, I think we all should memorize that verse if we have not memorized it already. Because there's going to be things in our life that we can't do by ourselves, but we can do it with God's help. Okay? And I'm sure all of you at some point or another, whether in the past or just recently, have gone through something and you tried doing it by yourself. Did it work out? No. And I've been going through some stuff, and I just found some things out. And I was like, I don't want to tell anybody because everybody has their own issues already that they have to deal with, and I don't want to give my issues to somebody else to worry about me because they have their own problems. I told that to my husband, and my husband's like, don't. He goes, let me in. Talk to me. Because you feel better after you get it off your chest. It's like, I just don't know how to say it. I don't know. But you know what? The Lord already knows what we're going through. He already knows what the outcomes are going to be. Okay, whether it's health related, emotions, we all have that. Financial issues, spiritual issues, we all have issues that we can rely on Christ. Okay, we could do all things, not just the little, I need to tidy my house, I have family coming over on Saturday, which is true, I do. And so I am like doing everything I can to get all the cluttery stuff. I cleaned my kitchen and dining room. I cleaned my kitchen and dining room for like 2 hours yesterday. making sure it's all nice and neat, putting things away that did not need to be left out because I've been neglecting it because I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't. I had like 4 loads of laundry I needed to fold. I folded 3 of the 4 and have 2 more, and 2 more that I'm like, it's never ending, but I told myself, no, I'm not going to be lazy. I got to get it done. And it's not just because I have family. I'm just sick and tired of looking at all the junk piled up on stuff and all the construction that my house is a mess. Anyway, but I can do all things through Christ. Let's go ahead and pray and we'll start our lesson and we'll continue on from there. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the opportunity that we have to be able to come to you and learn how to handle things. Lord, we're learning in Philippians right now. Lord, help us to remember that we can do all things through you, because you'll strengthen us to be able to do these things that we struggle to do on our own. Lord, I just hope that this lesson will be a help and encouragement to these ladies. Help us to have a great Sunday. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, so I got this information from this book, okay? I don't have any more to give out. I'm sorry. So you'll just have to just listen, okay? But if you would like, you can read Philippians, all the chapters, which there's not many chapters in Philippians. So if you want, you could go ahead and read Philippians, and then you'll could kind of get a general idea of what we're going to be talking about. But I am using his outline, okay? And this week it's just an overview of what we're going to be talking about for the next month or so, however long it takes us to get through it. So, are we ready to learn about being joyful in the book of Philippians? Because in the world today, we don't have a lot of happy, joyful people. We go out and about in stores or wherever, and you see all these grumpy, frustrated, annoying, upset people. But how can we change that? Well, we can change it by ourselves being joyful and asking God to help us be more joyful. And I know, ladies, there are going to be times when we're like, why? Well, because we're of a sinful nature. Things are going to happen, but the result, our attitude towards these different things that may come up in our lives, we need to be joyful about it. And I'm trying with the stuff that I'm going through right now. It's hard because it's a change. But I need to tell myself, I told myself, yes, Joe and I were talking, and he's like, we just need to change our mindset of how we think about it. I'm like, I know you're right. I really don't want to listen to you, but I know he's right. We all know Joe. Joe has this intuition of things that are going to happen before they even happen. Like the COVID, when it first hit, he goes, it's going to, well, he was right. I'm like, how do you know these things? God. I'm like, why can I have that? Okay. But God made each and every one of us different. If we're going through things, we have to think differently. We have to have a different thought process when it comes to different things. So I have to tell myself, be joyful. It's okay. It's okay. And it's hard to do. But we can do it because I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. Okay, so like I said, we are going to be talking about Philippians. And today we are going to be going over just the overview of what we're going to be looking at through this. So Philippians 1, verse 21. This is another good verse. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. Now, This is what I already told you, so I'm just giving you more information here. This is a very good book. And as I found this book, as I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for our next series, I'm like, I don't know. Joe's like, well, what about? And I was looking at books in his office at home, which he has a plethora of books. And I'm just like, I don't know. So I found that, I'm like, how about Philippians? Be Joyful by Warren Wiersbe. He goes, that's a good one. So I was just finishing up a different book. When I found this, I'm like, I only have like 2 or 3 weeks to be able to read this to start preparing for my series. And I'm reading, I'm like, oh my word, that's good. That's good, that's good. I'm like, okay, this is a perfect book to go over. So, 4 attitudes that maintain our joy. 4 attitudes that maintain our joy. The first one is the single mind. The single mind. So I don't know what blanks you guys have or have not. So I'm kind of going on a whim here. So, joy in spite of circumstances. What are some circumstances that you ladies can tell me that you might be going through or that somebody else might be going through? Somebody tell me? Patty?
Well, of course, we had the 2 funerals, and then we got, it's a long story, but we got a rental back, and this like 12-year-old boy was trying to destroy it, pretty much. And so our kids were there for the funeral, and we're talking, and my husband had just gone to make sure things are locked up, and they see how bad it is at the rental. And so, of course, we're not exactly real happy, and our grandson, who's 3, just turned 4, he's 4, he just turned 4, out of the blue, he goes, everyone clap and be happy.
Aw.
Talk about being convicted by a grandchild.
Yeah. Out of the mouths of babes.
Yes.
Right? And it's true. There are so many different circumstances, ladies, that we all go through. And we all go through things differently. But are we being joyful? Well, my book's falling apart. I can tell it's an older book. But here's a verse for you. James 1:8. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. How many of us have been there? Our mind knows we need to do one thing, but then our mind tells us to do a different thing. It's like on a teeter-totter. Which way are we going to? Or a balance. How are you going to even it out? By what? Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ. That's how we can get that teeter-totter level or our balance level. How many of you have gone on a merry-go-round and then you get off and you're like, okay? How are you going to balance yourself? Just stand still. Don't close your eyes, because then it's going to feel like you're on the merry-go-round even more so. So just stand there and just let your head just feel like it's in place before you start walking. Okay, so many times when I was younger, we would go to the park and there was a merry-go-round there, and our friend he would run and so this thing was going super fast, and then it would slow down, and you're like, just even sitting there, you're like wobbly. But how are we going to balance our spiritual life when it's going crazy? Well, to balance it out, we can sit, pray, do our devotions, come to church, call a friend. Okay? That's how we can balance our spiritual life. Okay? Here's your points here. The fellowship of the gospel. The fellowship of the gospel. What does fellowship mean? Anybody? What's the word fellowship mean? Spending time. Okay. Anybody else? Getting together. We love getting together, us ladies. We love being able to spend time with each other. I was talking to Cammie about some things, and I asked her to pray, and she goes, do you want me to move my daughter's birthday party somewhere? I was like, nope, I need family. We need it. We need that closeness. And my husband's like, for over the 10 years we've been married, he goes, why is it that somebody from a large family always wants to be out and about, when me from a small family wants to stay home? Honey, small family, large family, we always have to be around people. I hate it when I have to miss out on family affairs. Okay, my mom had a surprise birthday party for our 40-year-old sister, and I couldn't go to it. And I was so bummed, because Kara and I are like this. And although it doesn't seem like it, because I don't call her as often as I should, or the person I call the most is Cammie. But I don't talk to my siblings as often as I should. But I love the fellowship. I hate missing church. I think we all do, but I hate missing it because I love being here with all my friends. Because I love that fellowship that we have. I would rather talk to all you ladies than having to sit at home. I miss it when I can't teach, surprisingly enough, okay? And that's not a bad thing. It's a real good thing, because I miss having the fellowship, the connection that we have. So the fellowship of the gospel. When we gather together and do our ladies' Bible study, or do our mother and daughter brunch, or whatever we can to get together, it's a good thing. And we could share the gospel. We could share prayer requests and praises that we have. Okay? The fellowship of the gospel. The furtherance of the gospel. How can we further the gospel? Anybody? Go sewing. That's a big one. Well, people are still afraid to open their doors. Well, that's okay. You can leave a tract in their door. It's okay. You don't need to personally talk to them. Just go and pass out tracts. Go put it in their door. What's another way we can further the gospel? Witnessing. Laura? Yep, talking to our neighbors. Anybody else? Inviting others to church. Good testimony. Oh, how many of us have seen people that were not a good testimony? How many of us sometimes look back and said, oh, I wasn't maybe a good testimony? We've all been there. And once we realize that we haven't been that good of a testimony, we're like, okay. And then we just need to pray and ask God to help us be a better testimony. Next, the faith of the gospel. The faith of the gospel. What do you think that means? I'm getting you ladies more involved, if you have not noticed. I'm getting you ladies more involved in talking. Because I think it's good that we have the dialogue, because then it can hear others, not just me, be able to hear what you're thinking. So what's the faith of the gospel? What does that mean to you? Judy?
I would say accepting without questioning.
Yes. Yep.
Or without questioning.
Got it. How many of you ladies have gone to the doctor and were hoping for one situation, but you got something else that wasn't really exciting? And what did you just say? Accepting it instead of questioning it? That's so hard to do. We got to accept the things that God puts in our life. You know why? Because it's a trial, and he wants us to see how we will react. Are we going to be joyful, or are we going to be, I can't believe it? Or are we going to be so emotional that our emotions are just really flowing? We're crying. We are distraught. We need to accept it. And it's hard to accept news that we weren't really expecting to get. And it's hard. Anybody else? The faith of the gospel. Pearl?
With the faith of the gospel, also, we are showing other people, we are mirrors, so that they know how nice it is
Yep.
Not just do what you feel.
Yep. Our testimony is a lot of the faith of the gospel, because our testimony really is showing others how we are spiritually. I've heard some stories of people that they would be at work, okay, and they're Christians and they work with a whole lot of unsaved people. And then these Christians are very happy and excited. And then their coworkers, why are you so happy? I want what you have. Laura?
Sometimes they want it, don't, but they don't want it.
That's true. And the best thing we can do is to just give it. And then it's their choice if they want to accept it, right? So these 3 points are important to have a joyful attitude, okay? So the fellowship of the gospel, getting together, learning, comprehending, the furtherance, going out and about and sharing it, okay? And then the faith of the gospel being a testimony and accepting it instead of saying, why? Well, there's many reasons why, but God doesn't want to give us those reasons right now. He wants us to work for it. And in the end, he may never give us the answer that we're looking for. And that's the thing we just have to accept, Dee, okay? It's hard. Our next point is the submissive mind. Oh, how many of us like being submissive? There are times, ladies, I'm sure we don't want to be submissive. And I'm not just referring to our husbands or our doctors or our friends. I'm talking about the Lord. Sometimes we don't like what the Lord has to tell us. But how are we to grow if we don't be submissive? Okay, y'all owe me a coffee. Just kidding, I'm just kidding. Okay, the submissive mind. Luke 14:11, for whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. I love that verse. But can somebody, in your own words, explain that verse to me?
We're proud, we're going to be humble.
Yep, when we're proud, we're going to be humble.
I think for that verse, it looks, people who are humble are more elevated because people look up to them than someone who's all haughty and proud.
Yes. Now, that's a good point, Sue. Zen. One time I called somebody that said Susan. They were like, nope, it's this. I was like, okay. So I try, and unless they say otherwise, I'm going to call them by their actual full name. But that is true, okay? If we're haughty about it, then that's the wrong type of pride. But if we're humble, then that's the good pride. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense to me. Anyway, being a teacher, I should know this stuff, but okay. I didn't go to college to necessarily be a teacher, but it works. Okay. Next, the example of Christ. The example of Christ. Ladies, once we become a Christian, we are an example of Christ. Now, we are not Christ because we will never be that way. But we can do our dead level best to be like Christ as we can. Does that make sense? So we could do everything in our power to be like Christ, but we will never be good enough to be that way. I'm trying to think of another example, okay? If we know of a great painter, okay, we can try our hardest to be as good as that person. But will we ever manage to be that person? No, because we all learn differently. Now, Belinda could know a whole lot more about Bible than I do. Great. But I know different things than a Belinda would know. Okay? But that doesn't make me better than Belinda. Okay? Because she's been around longer than I have. So she knows things differently than I would know them. Okay? I could bake cakes, but I'm not going to be a great cake baker like Rosie, although Rosie's probably sitting there like, stop it. Well, it's true. If you have not had her strawberry cake, whose ever birthday's next?
Mine's coming up.
So, happy birthday to Laura. You missed a birthday. So, I'm just saying, I can try my best to copy her cake, but do you think it'll turn out just as good? No matter how hard I try, no matter how hard I'm like, Rosie, I need your help, it won't turn out as good. Like me making red chili. I was like, okay, Mom, how much of this do you put in there? Oh, you just put this and this in there. I'm like, how many teaspoons or how many? Do you think it tastes like my mom's red chili when I make it? Nope. Or my dad's. I was like, I can't make red chili, so I just leave it up to Pastor and Pastor Joe to make it. Because I can't make it. I can't make it. Huh? Wendy's chili is good. Although Outback chili is really good too. And Texas Roadhouse chili is pretty good. Just saying. Stop talking about food. I know. I'm going to keep talking about food because my mom makes some really good white chicken chili. Okay? I can copy Mom's white chicken chili really good. And I love that. But I cannot make her red chili. So we can try our best to have an example of what a Rosie's cake could be, or a red chili, or a white chicken chili, or how we play the piano, or how we do this, how we do that. We're not going to be like those people because we learn differently. We do things differently. Yeah, he has made us differently. And you know what? I have been told this. If God made us all the same, the world would be pretty boring. I don't know. I mean, if he made us all like Eli, it might be pretty exciting. Just saying. I love him to death. But if you guys were not here for our piano recital on Friday, he was a hoot. Okay? He loves his piano teacher. Okay? And so when she plays her little part, he wants to watch her fingers. But she's like, it's so funny because he is so focused on everything else but what he's supposed to be focused on. And it's so funny because she's like, this note. I'm like, Eli, just play the piano. But he did really good. And then there's Steven up there. I mean, he's a pro. Up straight. I'm sitting here like with my shoulders tense probably. And that's probably why my shoulders hurt afterwards. But anyway, we all learn and do things differently. But we need to, yes, ma'am.
One thing too, that being a piano player also, but not anywhere near the caliber of your teacher. This lady played before everybody started. She plays every single key on that piano all the time.
Yep.
Every one. Well, we might do a chord.
Yep, she's like, so she's teaching me, like she said at the recital, she's teaching me how to improvise and to do stuff differently, and how I taught myself how to play, and my other piano teachers taught me how to play. She's teaching me way differently. I'm like, okay.
But wasn't she here with one group?
Yes, for a teen group thingy. She came and she played the piano
And
as
I
well.
remember saying to her how much I appreciated her piano playing and how wonderful it was, and she said, I had nothing to do with it.
Well, she did have good teachers when she was younger up north. Cammie and I both know the teachers that she had up there. Phenomenal pianists. I mean, she learned how to play by ear by one of my favorite teachers that was up there. I mean, just 3. Glory Ann's age, she started playing. I'm like, my daughter can't, yeah. Anyway, we can be like Christ as much as we can, but we'll never be Christ. Another example is Paul. We all know the story of Paul, okay? We all know, page keeps turning on me. We all know that Paul's story, okay? Can somebody tell me something interesting about Paul? Yeah. Yeah. He hated Christians. What did he do to the Christians? He stoned them. What a way to go. Stoned them. He hated them. And then what happened? He saw the light. Literally. The bright light. We think the sun's bright. Just imagine God's light. Amazing. Where God blinded him to be able to change his life. Now, I'm not saying God put a light, in your life like he did for Paul, but God put a light in you to change you. I mean, after Paul got saved, whoa, what a difference his life was. People were still afraid of him because they knew what he was in the past. They didn't know that he changed. So when they ever heard that he was coming into town, they probably all hid because they were terrified. Okay? Are you going to be that example that Paul was after he got changed? Are we going to be like that? What about Timothy? The example of Timothy. What's Timothy's story? Anybody? Yeah. His mother and grandmother taught him. Now, I was just telling this to my kids. I was telling them how I learned how to make bread and how to make some things growing up. Because growing up in the summertime, we would can, we would make homemade bread, we would make cookies. Then we would go outside and play. And growing up, Mom would watch 2 of the girls that Cammie and I grew up with. And so they would come over and we would be making homemade bread, Patty. And we would not machine homemade bread. Okay, that's the lazy way of making bread. Okay, if you have a bread machine and you use it, it's okay, because I've used it before too. Although I don't do it much anymore. But we would knead the dough. Turn it over, knead some more. I'm like, can we be done? My arms were so Mom's like, in the end, you will be grateful. I was, because that bread was so good. But I told my kids, I said, yeah, I learned how to cook from my grandma and my mom. And my grandpa. My grandpa made really good chili and turkey. Oh, so good. So I was grateful for that. My mom and grandma set the example of how to bake, how to cook. And I loved every minute of it. My mom would make this chocolate cake. Chocolate cake, okay? Spongy, moist, delicious, okay? Then on top of it, Janice, she would have like this thick of peanut butter layer on top of that. Oh, it gets even better. Then Rosie, she would have this homemade chocolate fudge frosting that she would put on it while the peanut butter was like melting into the cake. She would pour that on there. It's my favorite cake ever. Yeah, I'm starving today. I didn't eat breakfast. So I'm just thinking it and getting all the calories and carbs in my system right now as I'm thinking of it. But she would make this chocolate peanut butter fudge cake. It's to die for. But you had to have milk, which I didn't drink milk or coffee, because it was so rich. The richest, I'm not kidding, the richest cake you would ever eat. It was so good. But she would make this she would make good cakes in general. But she would make this, was it the orange creamsicle cake or whatever? Ice cream cake that she would put lady fingers on the outside. Makes me want my mom to make it. But she doesn't make that kind of stuff anymore because she's on a diet. I'm on a... What? I am very jealous now. I should tell her to make it for Kate's birthday. And I'm just going to take a little sliver. Okay, anyway. Huh? Yeah, but still, the lady fingers are not sugar-free, I'm sure. Anyway, so they gave us example as kids of how to cook, how to bake. They gave us the basic sewing lessons, how to do a button, how to sew seams-ish. I just randomly just go, I'm done. Then I'm like, okay, if it's more complicated, I'm like, Kathy. So, because I know she can do it. But the example of Timothy, his grandma and mom gave him an example how to live as a Christian. Our next one is the example of Epaphroditus. Thank you. Epaphroditus. See, I can't say it even now, and I've studied it multiple times. That example. What is his example? Epaphroditus. I knew I should have looked this up even more. Sorry. I thought I had written everything down, but apparently I did not. Let's look at 2 Timothy. I think that's where it's at. 2:25-30. 2 Timothy 2:25 to... Okay. I don't think it's 2 Timothy. Nope. Thank you, Sue. Let's see. Maybe it's 1 Timothy. Nope, it's not that either. Good grief. Oh. Okay, turn back to Philippians. Okay. Philippians 2:25-30. I don't know why I was thinking Timothy. Okay. It says, "Yet I supposed it necessary to send you to Epaphroditus," I think I said that right, "my brother and companion in labor and fellow soldier, but your messenger and he that ministered to my wants. For he longed after you all and was full of heaviness, because that ye had heard that he had been sick. For indeed he was sick nigh unto death, but God had mercy on him, and not on him only, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. I sent him therefore the more carefully, that when ye see him again, ye may rejoice, and that I may be the less sorrowful. Receive him therefore in the Lord with all gladness, and hold such in reputation. Because of the work of Christ he was nigh unto death, not regarding his life to supply your lack of service toward me." So this is talking about Timothy and Epaphroditus. How he was his fellow servant, his helper. Okay? He was sick. And they were afraid that he was not going to make it. And so it says in 27, for indeed he was sick nigh unto death, but God had mercy on him. What do you think that means? That God had mercy on him. Yeah. He let him continue in serving him. Okay? So do we have that example as Epaphroditus, that our spiritual life is so strong in the Lord that God will give us mercy to be able to fulfill what God has given us? I hope so. Okay? Next, the spiritual mind. The spiritual mind. 11 times in this chapter, we find that Paul was using the word things. He points out that most people mind earthly things. Okay? Philippians 3:19 and 20, it says, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is in their shame, who made earthly things. For our conversation is in heaven, from whence also we look for the Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. Okay? The spiritual-minded Christian is concerned about heavenly things. When we are, like it says, spiritually minded, we think of how we can share the gospel with someone, how we can be a better Christian, how we can do this to help our life spiritually or to help others' life spiritually, especially for the future. But when our hearts and minds are not spiritual, then we think of, oh, how am I going to look to somebody else? How is this going to sound? You know, Judy and Cammie know this more than any of you probably, because I've talked their ears off about the recital and Susan, about the piano recital. And I was like scared out of my mind because I've never done a recital before. Okay, playing for church is way different than playing for a recital, okay? And I was terrified. Or playing in a high school band is way different than playing at a recital. And I was just terrified. And I'm just like, I want it to sound good. I don't want to make mistakes. And Judy, bless her sweetheart, she said, but we're not perfect. I want to be, but I'm not perfect. The only one perfect is God. And we could sit here and think, whoa, Kayla, my piano teacher, she is a whiz on the piano. And she is, if you've ever heard her, she is amazing on the piano. But you know why she's so good? Because she started off at Glory Ann's age, and she's never stopped. My sweet mom tried giving us all, well, at least the three older ones, I don't know about Cammie, but piano lessons from a lady in our church years ago. But it started getting expensive when we all wanted to play. So we stopped playing. And then a friend of mine that was older than me, she was trying to teach me during choir practice. I'm like, Amanda, it's not going to work. Because we just get to talking and we just don't stop. And she's like, well, you need to do this, this, and this. And I already knew somewhat about how to read music because I played clarinet since Stephen's age. But it's way different on a piano than it is on a clarinet. So I just hadn't picked it up until like 7 years ago, maybe. And this is as far as I got. But I have improved way a lot, and Cammie knows this especially. And for those of you who've known me, like Laura has, or Patty, some of you, ever since I've been here, I've dabbled on the piano. And then now it's like, okay, I like this Kyla a little better than this Kyla, but this Kyla is still terrified to play these long pieces that I should have not played at all. because it was too much in such short little time that I had to get it ready. But we need to make sure, ladies, that we are spiritually minded. So Paul's past, we all know the story about Paul. Paul's past was that of evil, right? He stoned Christians. He stoned us, but back in his country, back in Bible times. So we all know what his past was like. We wouldn't want to be near him at all. But would we be willing to stand up and say, I'm a Christian? Like that Columbine shooting years ago. Would we be willing to say, yes, I am a Christian? Sometimes when I sit there and think of these situations, I'm like, would I? I know I probably would. That's just how my mind thinks. I don't know if no, you would. Because who knows, even if you wouldn't say you're a Christian, they might kill you anyway. You don't know. You know? So we need to pray for like the people that were involved in the Texas shootings. We need to pray for those people. But we should not be afraid to move on. I know some people, when bad things happen to them, they're afraid just to continue on in life because they're afraid that something else bad is going to happen to them. But don't let your past situations keep you from moving forward, because we don't know what God has planned for us. God might have something huge planned for us, but if we don't turn and ask him for help, I can do all things through Christ, then we'll never know what our future may hold. Okay? Paul's present. I think we all like this Paul better. He saw the light, then he was blinded by it, and God healed his eyes so that he could see the way Christ sees. And that changed his life like nobody ever could. And Paul, what an example Paul was of how to be a witness, how to teach, how to preach to those people in need. And ladies, I know it's hard to be able to do that. And yes, you may not think this of me right now, but those of you who've known me growing up or when I first got here, I was the shyest person you probably would have ever met. And now I am not so shy, but I'm still at times, I'm afraid to go up and give somebody a tract, honest. Because I don't know if they're going to hurt me or yell at me or whatever. But it shouldn't matter. We should be willing to do everything we can to be able to lead somebody to the Lord. Whether it's just handing them a tract and saying, here. So many times the last couple weeks when I would hand out those little thank you tracts, I'd hand them out to somebody, I'm like, thank you. That made my day. And it almost made the cashier cry. I was like, well, you're doing a great job, and thank you so much for your help. Thank you. That made my day. You don't know whose day you're going to save by giving somebody a tract. Or even by just smiling and asking, hey, how's your day? I hope you have a great day. Went to the doctor on Friday, and this dad was carrying his maybe 4-month-old little girl, and she just looked so miserable. And I said, oh, I hope she's going to be okay. Well, they took her to the emergency room a couple days ago or a week ago or whatever. And he goes, yeah, well, the doctor said that they think she has croup, so they gave her a steroid medicine to take or whatever, but she's still not. I was like, oh, I hope they find out what's wrong with her so she can get better. He goes, yeah, me too. He goes, but I don't know. It's like, to be able to think that, because we don't know what I don't know what the outcome was because they were in visiting their doctor when I was walking out, so I don't know what happened. I said, well, I'll be praying that she gets better. And I hope she does. But is that how your life is right now? Are you asking God to be able to give you an opportunity to be able to give somebody a tract or to be able to witness to somebody? I about broke down and cried the week of Community Week for the car show for Christ, because our neighbors came out who have three little kids, my kids' age. And Stephen has been praying and asking God for an opportunity to be able to witness to the eldest. God. He was able to witness to him. And I'm hoping, from the sounds of it, he prayed. But I'm hoping he meant it. I won't know. The only person that'll know for sure is him and God. But I have been praying for that family. They're going through a rough time right now, but it was such a blessing for my 8-year-old boy to be able to experience that. What a blessing. Is that how your spiritual life is right now? Paul's future. What was Paul's future looking like? Somebody tell me. What was Paul's future? Anybody? To probably be known as somebody who was such a horrible person, whose life got turned around by God's mighty works, and was able to witness to hundreds and thousands of people. Wouldn't that be something that you would want to be known for? I hope that none of us will be known for as somebody as cranky or grumpy or yelling or whatever. I hope we're all remembered. I've talked to this about my husband lots of times. It's like, I don't know what I'll be remembered for. But I really hope is for somebody who's kind and nice. He goes, oh, you will be, and more. I was like, okay, you're just saying that because you're my husband. He goes, no. It's like, okay, just stop now because no. But seriously, what are you going to be known for? Are you going to be known as a great cake baker? Are you going to be known as a great gardener? Those are all good things. But are you going to be known for somebody who loved the Lord, who is willing to step in somebody else's shoes and help them out with something? Or are you going to be known for somebody who's willing to give everything for the cause of Christ? Next is the secure mind. The secure mind. I like these verses. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. God already knows what we need, but he wants to hear it from you. He knows. He knows it before we even think of it. Imagine that. I wish I had that ability on a lot of things. Next, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. But we got to let our requests be made known. Whether it's, where am I going to be in 10 years? What am I going to do with my life? What this, what that, what that. But God knows. But we have to be willing to give it to him. In the end, I told God, I'm like, God, I'm giving this song over to you. I can do nothing more with it. All I can do is play it and hope for the best. But are you giving that prayer when you ask him about your health? About your finances? Give it to the Lord. He'll keep our hearts and minds in Christ. Okay. Next, God's peace. Oh, we like peace. We like peace and quiet. But I don't think this is necessarily referring to like quiet house. Okay. In your own words, somebody tell me what they think God's peace means. What this point means. Anybody? Laura?
That he has everything in control.
Yes. Cammie? Oh, don't we like it when we can? Yesterday I was cleaning the house and I got done. I'm like, oh, I feel good. And then I'm like, well, maybe this is just a dream, okay? Cleaning my dining room and kitchen. I'm like, I go over to my father-in-law's for dinner. I come back, I'm like, doesn't it feel good when you get something accomplished that you've been wanting to get accomplished for a while? And you just feel good about it. I'm like, wow, this looks nice, if I do say so myself. And Jill's like, you did a great job. I'm like, I know. But don't brag too much, because it's going to be a mess within like minutes. Sure enough, it was. Cake crumbs all over, popcorn crumbs all over. It's okay. It's okay. I know. All the ants are wanting to come in and eat the crumbs that are on the floor. Which I've only had to kill like maybe 6 ants so far. And I'm like, normally I have to kill like 20 already. Okay, God's power. God's power is great. Okay? God's power is great. And then God's provision. We like God's provision because God provides for our every need according to his purpose. Okay? Thank you, ladies, for coming. Like I said, this was an overview of what we're going to be talking about. Next week, we'll be talking how to increase our faith. How to increase our faith. So, I hope this lesson was a help and